Mr. Baldwin, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, good.
But I can't hear the panel members.
Okay. Sure thing. I appreciate that.
Good morning. The January 16th, 2025 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel is called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Department of Education and ask that you please silence all of your electronic devices. The goal is to facilitate a fair and responsible hearing. So therefore, I ask that each person speaking please state your name and title for the record. I ask that you continue to speak clearly into the microphone throughout your presentation for the benefit of the panel, this audience, and the viewing audience. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and a transcript of the meeting will be posted on the DESE website. Again, good morning, everyone, and good morning to our panel members. Before we move forward, I'd like to introduce you to two of our newest panel members. So we have joining us Dr. John Bacon, good morning, and Edie Stewart. Okay, so welcome to our team. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get started? No, you're good, you're good. Okay. Okay, very good. And we're glad you guys are joining us. Thank you. We have a consent agenda before us. Do we have that available?
Dustin Wood, Director of School Choice, Arkansas Department of Education. The consent agenda just has the minutes from the previous October 2024 CAP meeting on it.
Okay, okay. So do we need to?
There needs, if the panel would like to approve it, there needs to be a motion, second, and a vote to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, all right. So as stated by Mr. Woods from the CAP office, the consent agenda is comprised of the minutes from our October meeting. And at this point, if there are any questions from the panel members about that agenda or the previous meeting?
I'm not seeing those minutes.
Okay.
Where are those minutes at?
Okay.
They are, Dr. Moore, they are on the board book. They were uploaded on board
Well,
book.
that's why I'm looking at the board book, maybe and I do not see them on there. Are they on the previous meeting instead of this meeting? Because I don't see them on the board book. Have you seen?
I see them.
On the January 16th board book?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry. I see the CAP meeting dates link.
I'm just going to approach
I
and
see the CAP meeting dates as well, that's it.
Yeah, we don't see them on our end.
Okay, so
this is very strange.
let's see. Possibly if we look back.
Because I can see them, so. Let me try this.
Mr. Baldwin, are you able to see them on your end?
You know, I never did get a board book, so I don't have any information.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
they said they're working on it, so we may see it here in a little bit.
Technology, huh?
It's great, isn't it?
It's wonderful when it works.
I do apologize to the panel. Apparently, the attachment was made to be visible to anyone with a login instead of the public/anyone for it to be able to be viewed. So
No worries.
it's-
Once I refreshed, it's there, so.
Okay.
Look backwards.
So with that, the minutes from the October meeting are now visible, so if we want to take just a minute to look at those and see if we have any questions, and then we can proceed with approval.
Yeah.
Mr. Baldwin, can you see those now?
No, I can't. I probably need some help.
Are you accessing the board meeting agenda and the board book today?
No, I'm not. And
Okay, I'll put the
usually
link
they
in-
would send that to me by email.
Yeah,
since I'm
I'll
not
put the
on
link in the chat.
system.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can see them now. Madam Chair, I've read
Okay.
that. It looks fine to me.
Okay. Does anybody else need more time? Okay. Okay, so we've all had a chance to review the consent agenda. Are there any other questions that need to be addressed in regards to that? Okay, great. Then I'll accept a motion to pass the consent agenda.
I move to pass the consent agenda.
Okay, motion made by Dr. Moore,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Baldwin. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Okay, passes. Great. Okay, now I'd like to call forward Ms. Haywood, would you come forward and review the procedures for today?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kaylee Haywood, and I am with the Department of Education's Legal Services Division. And I am just here today to go over the action agenda, operation procedures. And so the presenting party will get 20 minutes to present their side. If there is any opposing party, they will also get 20 minutes. And then the initial presenting party would get 5 minutes for rebuttal. Anyone who will be speaking today will need to be sworn in. And any questions that the panel has can be asked to the presenter after the presentation. Any questions about that? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Woods?
Dustin Wood, Department of Education. Yes, Dr. McMurray, we have, I think this is the point where we move on to the action agenda. We have 2 items on the action agenda for today. We have the proposed Charter Authorization Panel meeting calendar for 2025, and the dates are on the screens there. We also have Dr. Tran from Friendship Charter Schools here to speak about his proposed amendment to their charter.
Okay. Okay. So I'd like to give the panel members an opportunity to review the dates that are proposed for a 2025 meeting. Okay. Are there any questions?
I have a question. I know that the May 15th date, I'm unavailable. So since we have a smaller group now, what do we have to have a quorum?
Dr. Moore, currently There are 6 sitting members. Ms. Newton is out today. There will be a 7th, so you will still need to have 4 members present minimum to have a quorum.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or clarifications needed? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion to accept the dates.
I move that we accept the dates.
Okay,
I second.
okay. Motion by Ms. Stewart, seconded by Dr. Moore. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, passes. Okay.
And the second item on the action agenda today, we have Dr. Tran from Friendship Schools. They are here to speak about and request an amendment to their charter for a new school to be placed within their charter school.
Okay.
So, Dr. Tran?
But before we start, we need to have a swearing in.
Yes,
Okay.
he does have to be sworn in.
Okay. Okay. So, those of you that are here on behalf of Friendship Charter today to speak, if you would please stand and raise your right hand. Okay. Okay. Do you swear that the testimony or statement you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. You may begin your presentation.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
Thank you for allowing us to present today. You guys have the presentation. I'm going to go through it quickly because I have parents and students that want to speak, so I want to give some time to that. Okay, so. But as you know, presenter, I am Tran, the superintendent of Friendship, and we're here to ask for a charter amendment to our charter. So, what are we seeking to do? Converting the lab school for dyslexia from a private school to a charter school and put that under our network. Continue the current school design, grade span, and operations of the lab school. And then we want to request a district-wide enrollment cap of 135 students to accommodate the additional students into the Friendship Network, right? At this moment in time, I know you guys might want to ask what is our enrollment. We have 25 students, and so what we wanted to do was double enrollment this year to 50, and then the second year double that enrollment to 100. So that's where we're sitting at, and it's later on I'll let you know that it's between 10 to 15 students per class, because with students with dyslexia we need to have small class size in order for it to be effective. Okay. And then last but not least was to seek approval for an academic accountability waiver, which is the letter grade, to accommodate the unique needs of the students that we serve. So that was one of the things that we're asking for on top of the waivers that we already have under our network. Okay. And the mission, as you can see there, and again, I'll just read the most important bit, but our mission is to empower these students to overcome their barriers to learning and achieve great level of proficiency through specialized teams of therapists and educators. We work collaboratively to create individualized learning plans that include academic intervention and supportive therapy services. Our ultimate goal is to help each student close the gap and then transition back to their home school with newfound confidence and skills. So remember, we want to do a K-8 and provide them with the necessary tools and skills so that they can go ahead and transition back to their high school, and then so on and so forth. So, the need. According to the Dyslexia Center for Utah, it reports that between 78% of poll readers are likely dyslexic, with 1 in 5 students having a language-based learning disability, and dyslexia being the most common. Okay, so over 4 million American adults have dyslexia, yet only 2 million are aware of it because it's not something that is known out there. It's one of those things that if you know, great, but if you don't know, it just goes underlying. So, and that's the stat that we found out, right? And the exact cause of dyslexia still remains unknown, okay? But researchers suggest that genetics, hereditary brain structure, and activity play a role. And dyslexia often runs within the family. So a lot of times, if parents have it, their kids are gonna have it. And a lot of times, parents don't know that they have it. And so if you hear, like back in those days, that parents say, hey, I had trouble reading, or I just couldn't read and I didn't want to, that could be a symptom of dyslexia, and they pass it on. And it's just like, okay, we're just bad readers. But it's not because of them, but it's because of this issue right here, right? And so while dyslexic may struggle with reading, spelling, and writing, these challenges are not related to intelligence. Like a lot of our kids right here, they have superpowers beyond what you can know. Like, they have issues with the reading. That's what we're trying to get them the skill set and the knowledge to cope with that. But they are smart in other ways. So again, they have, when you come to the school and you see what they can do, it's like, wow. And this is what we're trying to do to help them so that they can get better with reading. Because, you know, with literacy, it's everything. So again, with the need, we had a group that did a research, and they found out, and this is in the state of Arkansas, right? So they use a 5-year census data estimate to determine an upper and lower threshold that approximate the number of students in grades 1 to 8 with dyslexia or signs of a language learning disability in Arkansas. And that equates to about 28,000 students. So within our state, approximately, and this is the midpoint, it's not the lower and it's not the upper, it's just the midpoint, about 28,000 students are having issues with reading, language learning, which could equate to dyslexia. And again, not a lot of them know that they have dyslexia unless they go through different set of testings to determine that. Okay, so there is a need right there. Benefits. Okay, so expand access to specialized education, meaning it's a tuition-free school because it's a public charter school. So parents are no longer required to pay to educate their kids, right? Equitable opportunities, provide underserved communities with access to innovative evidence-based instructional strategies tailored to students with dyslexia. Again, because it's a private school, not a lot of parents can afford it, right? And so at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what can you do? Even though there's vouchers out there, but still, it doesn't cover a lot of it. It might cover half of it, but the other half that they have to still pay, which is still a lot of money. Innovation in public education, right? So dyslexia-focused expertise. It introduces a proven specialized model for dyslexia education into public school system, which I know with the state of Arkansas, we're trying to get better with that, right? With the science of reading, with dyslexia, with screening and all that kind of stuff, okay? And then with a flexible curriculum design. So maintains the ability to customize curriculum and teaching strategies while adhering to state standards, and then creating a model that can be replicated statewide. Then the next one, scaling impact and building community, okay? So larger enrollment potential, because now it's not a private school, it's a public school, so it's available for anyone who has that symptoms, right? And then increase community engagement, right? Create stronger connections between schools, families, and the broader community through inclusive governance and transparent operations. Then we got the professional development for educators, so specialized training. Okay, so expands opportunities for educators to receive state-supported professional development in dyslexia intervention and differentiated instruction. And again, that's something that the state is pushing in recent years, so this will help with that process as well. Positioning for future growth, right? So model for innovation serves as a proof of concept for specialized charter schools, potentially inspiring additional state initiatives to address learning disabilities. And then statewide leadership positions the school as a leader in addressing dyslexia, okay, and other learning differences and difficulty, because a lot of times students with dyslexia, they also have other learning disabilities that they try to get through as well, speech, OT, PT, so on and so forth. Also, under the innovative educational model implemented, students have demonstrated measurable growth in both reading and math, and I'll show that data to you towards the end. And then this model emphasizes personalized learning pathways, right? Evidence-based teaching strategies and targeted interventions tailored to meet each student's unique need. And then finally, by fostering an engaging and supportive learning environment, students are improving their foundational skills, develop critical thinking tools and problem-solving abilities. Okay, so this will help them to get back and just, what we talk about and trying to provide back to the community. So that's what we're trying to do there. So our educational model. So our education model is pretty unique, right? So each one of our students, they benefit from a robust research-based educational model that is tailored to address the unique needs of the learner. So some of the key components that we have is that we have highly skilled educators that are trained and certified in dyslexia, right? We also have licensed interventionists and therapists where students benefit from those services provided from those licensed individuals. Then we also have a comprehensive assessment where each student that goes through our program gets the weighted assessment, which is the Wilson assessment of decoding and encoding. It is used to evaluate students' decoding and encoding skills, allowing for targeted and effective instruction. And then our specialized system, the curriculum, we use the Wilson reading system, which is a structured and approved by the state literacy program to provide explicit, systematic, and multi-sensory instruction that meets the diverse learning needs of our students. We also have at the school on-site wraparound services. So like I mentioned before, occupational and speech therapy are provided on-site, right, offering a holistic approach to student support. We also have a executive functioning program, development program, where occupational therapists trained in executive functioning help students build critical organizational, time management, and problem-solving skills. And then finally, we have dyslexia speech, specific speech therapy, where the speech therapists trained in dyslexia methodologies employ strategies designed to enhance the language processing and communications for students with dyslexia. So through the program, by the end of this, students, when they leave the lab school, they are confident, right? So our students have a sense of self-esteem, because a lot of times when they're in like the traditional public school, they keep to themselves like, I have an issue, I don't want everyone to know. Here they're with their peers, so they feel more confident. So their self-esteem is built, right? So they're confident in their abilities, aware of their unique gifts, and know that they're capable of maximizing their full potential. They're also prepared. So our students are adaptable. They have the knowledge and skills needed to read and thrive in their next setting. And again, like we talked about, literacy is so important because it involves everything that we do in our everyday lives. Effective communicators. Our students are able to express themselves verbally and in writing with clarity and compassion. And then the last one's kind. Our students are able to make others feel included, seen, and valued. And by the end of this all, hopefully they should have gathered all the skill set in order to move to the high school. So let's look at the results. This year alone, we took the NWA map, right? And based on our winter data, which is our middle of the year testing, 67 of our students have demonstrated growth in reading since their fall assessment, and then 79% of our students have demonstrated growth in math since their fall assessment. Also, I want to talk about our KTEA3 data. And the KTEA3 data is the Kaufman test of educational achievement. And it measures different skill set, but what we used was a subtest, which measures the phonological processing, letter word recognition, letter naming facility, which is used to create a dyslexia index for K-1. And then for our 2nd to 12th grade, but here we're doing 8th grade, they are used to determine your nonsense word decoding, your spelling, your word recognition fluency. And so with that, it gives us a score on where they need to be, and that's how we go ahead and group them and teach them accordingly. And as you can see from the data there, a lot of them have met growth throughout the years. Okay. And then finally, we have a intervention program where students from our charter school, they actually they attend the dyslexia school twice a week, and they get services, like specific services that the students at the school are receiving. And based on that, on last year, we saw that And you can see right there, students, we had 8 students who started at the kindergarten level, and at the end of the year, they were reading at the first grade level, right? We had students that were starting at the first grade level, 6 of them, 2 were reading at a higher first grade level, and then 4 had advanced to the 3rd grade level. And then we had 8 students reading at the 2nd grade level, and at the end, 7 of them were reading at the 3rd grade level. And then we had 1 student reading the 4th grade level, and at the end, they were reading at the 5th grade level. Okay, so again, the program that we were utilizing at the lab school were actually giving us good results, and as you can see from there. So that is it for the presentation. I just want to read a quick testimony from a parent that she couldn't come today. She has 2 students at our school, and her name is Miss April, and I'll read to you quickly what she said. My oldest was in 3rd grade and unable to read a word like ran or bob. He had been tested by Pulaski County Special School District and found to have specific learning disability in kindergarten. The school he was at was accommodating him, but he wasn't progressing at all. This is not unlike many other students in school where accommodation pass students, but they don't ensure they are successful through their differences. We're thankful for the Succeed Scholarship that helped us financially afford a specialized school like the lab school, but there are many more students who need the support, educational style, and on-campus therapy the school offers, but are unable to access due to financial barriers. Friendship Lab School for Dyslexia has been a game changer. Within 4 months, my 3rd grader was decoding and sounding out multiple syllable words. Over the last 3 years, his confidence has skyrocketed. He no longer only focuses on sports, but has confidence in himself to succeed academically instead. We are a family to 2 dyslexic children. It is because of the success my oldest has seen from the lab school that both our children attend, and now my 2nd grader is thriving and has confidence in himself and his ability to read and succeed at school. Friendship Lab School has changed the trajectory of 2 students, an entire family, and I'm confident my children will be successful contributors to society when they grow up because of this school. We need more families to be able to access this success, and long term, I believe we would see greater success for the state of Arkansas because of the gap being filled by this school. Friendship Lab School going to charter is not only for families to save money, it's for the success of these students who need it, the families who don't know how much they need it, and for the overall impact this will have on our amazing state. Okay, so that was a parent that has been with us for a long time that has 2 of her child going there. At this moment in time, I'm going to pass it on to first our parent that wants to come in and speak to you real quickly. Please.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Sublette, also known as Mason's mom. So we've been at Friendship since Mason was in 3rd grade, and it has been a blessing to us. So I've watched Mason. We were blessed. He attended a public school here in Pulaski County. It was a very good school. We had, a good experience. I felt like in the public school, everything was done to help and support him. I was that mom. I was the room mom. Kindergarten, we were active in the school. He was diagnosed with dyslexia in the 3rd grade. We came into the school with an IEP because Mason had some issues. It took us a while to get diagnosed, but one of the things we did when we noticed he had issues in kindergarten, my husband and I had him tested ourselves. We took him to a psychologist, and one of the things we learned was that Mason was smart, but we couldn't understand why he had these struggles. And one of the things the psychologist told us at that time is he has struggles. We didn't know what it was, so we were still trying to figure things out, working with the school, just trying to figure out what was going on. But she told us he's smart, and he's not going to understand why he has struggles, and that's going to be frustrating for him. And I think when Dr. Tran talked about confidence, I don't think, as a parent, I don't think we understand, or from my point of view, it is so frustrating with dyslexia, because one of the things as the kids go through this, and as a parent, I'm sitting there working with him, learning spelling words in first grade. First grade is so hard. You know, you think, are they trying hard enough, or why aren't we understanding this? I read a book, and one guy described it as trying to understand with his dad, and the dad finally got it. They were talking about learning to drive a car, and it was a stick shift, and it's like you're stuck in first gear, but it's like at 6,000 RPMs, and that's when the dad understood it. You're giving it everything you got, but you're stuck in first gear. And so that's how we were, in school. It was like he was stuck in first gear. And then at friendship, it was like, oh, we're learning to shift those gears. And it just felt like everything just opened up. And it was a new world. And so I can't say enough about the confidence and to hear my son speak. But they met him where he is in everything. They met him where he's at in reading. And to talk about executive functions, that was the difference at Friendships Lab Schools for Dyslexia. All through the day, it wasn't we're pulling him out of class, we're going to focus on this, and then we're going to put him back in class, and he's going to be mixed back in, and then it's going to be right there where he doesn't want to, stand up and speak or be called on to read or do something like that where he's uncomfortable, because he's smart. He knows this better, but he just can't do it. It's, why can't I get this? But so that's kind of what it is. But at Friendship, it's where he's at. And to think about the executive functions that follow him from class to class to class, where they work on that scheduling, they work on, carrying that through, incorporating all of those things, the multisensory things that they do in class. So all of those things, and to see my son make those achievements and just blossom and bloom and just become this, this whole person. Sometimes I'm still shocked to see how well he's doing, how he's done. And we're leaving Friendship this year, and I wish we could stay, just because of so much he gets, for himself there. But I know it's time. And I feel the same way. Like for me, we would have done anything to put him in this school. We are blessed that my husband and our jobs will let us, take off and go pick him up and do all these things. And I know not everybody can do that. I talked to a coworker in Louisiana who wishes they had this sort of thing. I'm proud that we have this opportunity to bring this to other students. Like, we are able to do something here. I think about sitting at lunch with him at Baker and thinking about all of those kids in the lunchroom and thinking that 1 in 5 have dyslexia. I think about how is it not more prevalent in our schools? If 20% of the population has dyslexia or some form of learning difference, how are we not talking about it more? How is it not more in our schools? And so how can we not have this? So I pray that this blows up. I pray for this success. Even though we're leaving, we're still supporting in any way we can. But I'm sure there are 1,000 things I could say, but I'll stop here. So I'll pass. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. And now we have one of our amazing, wonderful superpower students who want to come up and speak to you real quickly. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Kate. The reason I think that my school should turn into a charter school is because I didn't. I think it's just heartbreaking that some kids don't know how to read, and they might be embarrassed to tell all their friends and all that. So our school can turn into a charter school. So those kids don't have to be embarrassed that they don't know how to read. And I was also embarrassed to tell my friends that I didn't know how to read. But, and that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, a lot of kids feel embarrassed in front of their peers, right? So that's why when they go to the public schools, they don't want to say anything because of that embarrassment, that stigma of, okay, you're at that grade level, you can't read. At the lab school, they're all together with their peers. So they don't have to act special, they don't have to act embarrassed, they don't have to be in that shell thinking that I'm the only one who doesn't know how to read. In fact, it's not your fault that you don't know how to read, right? It's just you have I'm not saying an issue or disability, but you have this dyslexia function that we're going to help you get through it and provide you with the necessary skill set in order to make you read. And again, the program has shown success. So at the end of the day, I think going charter school will provide an option for parents, for those who can't afford as well, but also for our parents right now who's paying private tuition funds free so that they can use that money for other things as well. But thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, thank you for your presentation. And so at this time, before we move into questions, Ms. Haywood, do you have anything that you need to come forward with in regards to this charter amendment?
So sorry.
Sorry.
We got one more parent who would like to speak. Is that possible?
Oh, sure, I think you have like a minute. Yeah, that's
Yes,
fine.
thank you. Sorry, my apologies for that.
Hi, my name is Julie Evans Johnson. This is my son Rowan. We've been at the Friendship Lab School for 2 years, and it has made a world of difference, not just in his confidence and learning abilities, but also his curiosity. Also, our home life is so much different because at the Friendship School we have a support. It's not just for the actual reading skill. They address other issues that often are associated with neurodivergence. And we had several of those, and one example I want to tell you is Rowan has ADHD as well, and so we thought that was a lot of his problems staying in the classroom, which was a problem when he was in public school. Holly Fleischman at the school, she recognized that his behavior might not necessarily be that, because we were doing things to try to work on that. She recognized that it was a sensory processing issue. And so she recommended we get involved with the OT, and that has helped wonders just with his physical ability, but also his ability to, at that school, we can take a quick break. He would run stairs just for 5 minutes because, the teacher would notice that he was antsy and all this, and he would just go run stairs and go back to the classroom, and he could focus. And I really can't tell you how much that means to me. Private school budget was never really a reality for me and my husband. We adjusted, and only because of Succeed and Learns were we really able to make that happen. But I can tell you that the product is priceless to me. And I really feel it's important that other students who may not have just one issue to have that support and have the help figuring out how to try different ideas of how to address it. I feel like there's a lot of parent support as well, and it feels like home.
Okay.
Rowan, did you want to say something?
The school really has helped me manage my dyslexia in terms of public speaking, because I really do have stage fright, but it just really helped me with that. And I think it would be a good idea to help other kids with that too.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Sorry. Now, Ms. Haywood, I'm sorry about that.
Hello, Kaylee Haywood again with the Department of Education Legal Services. And as far as any waiver request, I do not have any concerns with the Friendship overarching charter continuing their waivers that they have already been given. However, it sounded as if he is potentially requesting to waive the ESSA index score, the letter grade. That can't technically be waived. However, there is an alternative process that he can complete after he does get, if he gets approval to have this additional campus, where he can apply to be an alternative learning education program. And so essentially this campus would be an ALE program, and ALE programs do not receive that ESSA score. It's similar to other schools that we have, like premier high schools. They don't get an ESSA score because they're considered an ALE program. So it wouldn't be a waiver that could be given today because there is a requirement for that, but it can be waived in another process later. So yeah, that's all I have.
So then, I do have a question about that then. So, because currently that's what we're considering today, is the waiver, so is that something that needs to happen now? Can there be a decision now that they're going to go that route versus us going through the process of this waiver if we already know that that's not something that can be waived? I don't know if I'm quite asking the question correctly.
Right.
Okay.
So today, the charter cannot grant a waiver of any law or statute or rule that requires the letter grade accountability. However, you can vote today on whether or not to give Friendship this additional dyslexia ALE campus that they are requesting. So I think you can vote on the amendment request, just we don't have the authority to waive that accountability.
So in their current amendment request that we have in front of them, are they asking to be considered as an ALE? Is that in the language that we currently have in front of us?
I'm not sure if that is specifically how they worded it. And they honestly may not have realized that themselves, but I think that is the correct way to do this. Is they're essentially just requesting an additional campus or license is what we call it in our rules. It's referred to as an additional license as part of their original charter. And so it would just be an additional campus / license that they are requesting today. And so essentially today, we only have the authority to grant them that additional campus, and then later they can actually request for that campus to be considered an ALE program through DESE's ALE procedures.
So my question still is,
Okay.
so the waivers we currently have in front of us, we're not going to address those because we cannot.
Correct.
So what does this need to say in order for us to be able to take action today? Because what I'm hearing you say is that these two are not permissible, and then they would have to be designated as an ALE in order for us to be able to allow them to go the other route. But that language is not in this document that we have in front of us. So what would we need to do to make sure that we're on the right path and that they're in a space to where they can do the next steps? And I hate to keep asking that question.
No, that's totally fine. As far as the specific waiver request that they asked for, I guess you can choose to vote to not approve those waiver requests because they are not allowed, or you can choose to essentially stand silent on those.
And in the past, sometimes folks have removed their request for a waiver when this
That is true.
arises during the meeting.
That is
So
true.
they may want to remove that waiver, or we would have to just not approve that waiver. based on
Correct.
how we did in the past.
So that's what, I guess that's what I'm trying to
Okay.
get to, because I don't want them to have come today and then
Right.
there's no action that's taken because of the way that it's currently been presented to us.
Right.
So I'd like to provide them an opportunity if they would like to make corrections on that,
Okay.
and then give us guidance on what those next steps will look like.
But we could still approve the new campus request. just not the
Correct.
waiver.
Correct.
But doesn't it be approved as an ALE right now, or,
No, today it would just be approved as an additional campus.
okay.
So, after further consultation with Desi, honestly, let me say this. We wanted that waiver because it makes a difference, because our students will not be able to be at grade level. That's just the nature of it, right? And that's why it was so important to get that waiver for this school. Now, after consultation, I think I did not know that we have to go through the ALE route, which we will, and that process, the state had told us that they walk hand in hand with us, so I guess today we'll go ahead and get that, if we can get the approval for the extra campus, and then we will work with the state to ensure that that program is an ALE program so that we can get that side of the accountability worked out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Haywood? And thank you for the additional explanation. I think our panel still has additional questions.
Yes.
And so I just wanted you to be available for that.
Of course,
So,
of course.
I'll start with Dr. Bacon if you want to ask questions.
Okay. The first thing I wanted to do was just make a comment to Dr. Tran and Mr. Harris, and just as a watcher of charter schools these days, having been there myself, how much I appreciate and respect the work you all are doing around the state and your willingness to take on tasks that maybe other groups might not. I had an opportunity recently to visit Marla Lane High School, where
Yes,
I know
sir.
you all are working with that
Yes, sir.
district, and was impressed with the changes and the work that's going on there. So first of all, I just wanted to commend you all
Thank you.
and tell you I have a lot of respect for the work you do. I do have a couple of questions. The first thing, and this may be more for Ms. Haywood, in terms of sort of admissions, enrollment, as an open enrollment charter school, what does that look like since the target audience is students with intervention? I mean, with dyslexia, that need those dyslexia interventions. What does enrollment look like? So if someone who doesn't have dyslexia, or what is the evidence of dyslexia needed for admissions? Can you sort of talk to the legality of that?
So typically for an alternative learning environment, you can't specifically designate a certain special need. However, you can phrase it as, this is an alternative learning environment tailored to individuals with dyslexia. However, any student who requires any type of alternative intervention can be assessed and admitted into the program and provided those services through that program. And so that is something, again, that our alternative learning education section of DESE will be able to kind of walk them through and give them guidance on specifically how to implement this program so that they are doing it the correct way.
Certainly. Okay. That was my first question. Second, for Dr. Tran, just sort of, I know you went through sort of what the instructional model looks like and sort of the number of extra support personnel that are necessary to do this. And with a small population, is this a school that can ever be really self-sufficient financially, or will it always sort of be dependent on support from the organization as a whole? Just sort of speak to the
Sure.
financial side.
So
of that.
yes, it will be self-sufficient, because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is that when the students come in, they're going to get that weight testing. And so it's going to be by bands, right? And so we'll have, at this moment in time, we have 3 teachers. Okay, we have a PE teacher that does the executive functioning program. We have an ELL teacher, and then we have a mathematics teacher. And they just rotate between those students. So same model again. We're going to have, with 50 kids, we might have an additional 2 teachers to go ahead and rotate, but at the same time to ensure that the state standards are being met also. But yes, it is self-sufficient at this moment in time.
Okay.
Yep.
And as far as enrollment, I know that one of our parents that spoke talked about, transitioning out.
Yes, sir.
So students will be in this school for probably a shorter period of time while they're receiving service, or they may stay there for the entirety of
It depends, really. A lot of times, parents actually stay there for the whole entire length. Some of our parents actually want us to open a high school,
Okay.
but high school is just
Yeah.
such a beast that we just don't have that necessary, enrollment this moment in time to do high school. But again, there are also parents who feel that, hey, my kid has caught up, they're gonna leave to the normal, whatever, traditional public school or other private school, whatever the case is. So again, it's also parent dependent, but a lot of times what we see is parents actually stay. They stay because of that small environment, and they're with their peers. So there isn't that necessary, like that stigma, there isn't necessary that, you have to perform, because they're all together as a group and they function so well as a group as well.
Right. And this is maybe ties in back to Ms. Haywood as well. If we approve this under sort of normal rules with the waivers they already have, and then they apply for this ALE, is there a point where some sort of academic goals are written, some sort of measurable outcomes for an ALE, or what does that look like? I'm not familiar with that.
You know, I'm not 100% sure about ALEs. I don't know a lot about whether they have specific achievements that they have to meet. I do know that, of course, they will still have to meet certain, standards that cannot be waived.
Right.
And so they still will be held to a certain level of accountability and have to show some type of growth. And of course, we do have our charter office that also continuously measures the various charter schools and their ability to grow and meet certain measures.
That's just sort of my question, is what does that look like? And that may be different because it's an ALE environment. I mean, you may know.
I'll have,
What is the sort
I
of,
think
when
the
they come back
charter
for,
office might be able to answer
yeah.
this for you.
Okay.
Daryl Smith, Assistant Commissioner, Department of Education, Office of School Choice. So specifically what's going to happen, so once you all, if you decide to allow them to have to basically amend their current charter and add this campus, then at that point they'll go through that ALE process, all right, through the ALE office, and they'll set all the goals. They have reporting requirements set by law that they have to report in, and so as far as student progress and all those types of, so it's very, very defined and very well spelled out through the Alternative Learning Environment Office. And so they will have to do, there is reporting that's by law, there's some reporting that they have to do as far as progress and then setting goals and those types of things. So that, yes, so that will be done.
Okay, excellent. I think those are my questions. Again, I have a lot of respect for this group, and so even though I feel a little uncomfortable with some of the open-endedness of unsure what the this ALE process and what we're approving, but I feel very confident that if anyone can pull it off, Friendship can.
Okay, Ms. Stewart?
Yes, again,
Can
go
I
ahead.
just step in
Yes.
just one more time? Daryl Smith, Office of School Choice. So, like I said, you're not approving the ALE. That's not what's before the board at this moment. What you're approving is whether or not you would allow them to become a charter and add a charter and add a campus to their amendment. And then at that point, then DESE then takes over goes through that ALE process once you've approved them at that point. Okay.
Okay, Ms. Stewart?
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Like Dr. Bacon said, thank you all so much for the work that you do and everything, how you're serving our students and parents. Thank you to the parents and students that spoke. It was impactful. And we are excited that, you have Friendship on your side, working with your students. So we're grateful for that and all the work that you're doing. Some of the questions I appreciate Dr. Bacon asking because I had some of the same questions. But just for clarification purposes for this particular campus, you did talk about student size. I was wondering more specifically the teacher per student ratio that you're going for.
Yes, ma'am. It's between 10 to 15 students per teacher.
Per teacher,
Yes,
and then
ma'am.
you mentioned the 3 that would be, moving
Yes, ma'am.
throughout. Those are, all specific to dyslexia, or?
Yes, ma'am. The math teacher, the ELA teacher, they're specialized in dyslexia.
Yeah.
And then our PA teacher, he does the executive functioning program, which is also specialized in dyslexia as well. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, and I guess that was gonna be my next question, would be certifications and licensures for staff.
Yes.
And if you
They've
could
gone
speak
through
to
the
that.
Wilson program, which is, again, green lighted by the state, and the Wilson program is what is used for dyslexia. And a lot of schools at this moment in time, some are using that, and again, I can't tell you, but they've gone through that training, and they're certified at that level to utilize that program to help students with dyslexia.
Okay, and so for the IEP part,
Yes, ma'am.
all of that would be contained within this campus?
Correct,
And you
ma'am.
would have
Yes,
a
so we have.
supervisor supervising that
So
facility?
actually, any students with IEP, like for example, speech, OT and all that, we have licensed therapists on campus that actually provide those services to ensure that we meet special ed laws.
Perfect.
Yes.
One thing that I didn't hear you talk about was possibly a counselor or school counseling services. Is that also included?
Yes, ma'am.
And staff,
Yes,
okay.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think, for me, that answers everything. I did have a question regarding accountability, kind of like what Dr. Bacon mentioned. And yeah, I do have concerns with the open-endedness of this, and it could be, you know, I don't know what I don't know at this point, but it feels awkward to approve something that then is going to be sent on to someone else, and then does it come back, or?
That would be.
And I hate for you to have to repeat yourself.
No, it's totally fine.
Just to clarify.
I completely understand. So with the charters, they have to come first to get the approval to get this additional campus. And so I do think it does seem like kind of an odd process that this is how it would go. But they will have to get this approval first from the panel to have this additional campus. And then they will have to go through this separate program with the ALE side of things to then get approved to operate this campus as an ALE program as opposed to a traditional public school campus. Mm-hmm. And so this is, although it does seem odd, this is the appropriate process to do this. It would not necessarily be required to come back in front of the panel. However, the panel can, of course, set this maybe a few months out, or maybe so many months before they plan to actually open the campus, to essentially kind of review their progress on how they have come on setting up the ALE. That is absolutely something that the panel could make a motion and request, because we have definitely done similar things like that in the past.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Dr. Moore?
I want to echo what others have said. Thank you so much for what you're doing to support these students, and thank you to the parents and students that came. It was especially impactful hearing from the students, and thank you for being here today. I did have a few questions, and some have been addressed through previous questions. While I understand the benefits that are clearly expressed by the parents and students that have been there, and I'm not a special educator, and that is not my area of expertise, but I do know that there's such a push from our Office of Special Education at DESE for inclusion. So I am a little concerned for students to be pulled from the regular classroom environment, and I'm also curious as to the students who have graduated out and gone on to high school, how that transition has gone when a student has not been around their grade level peers who may not struggle with the same learning struggles that they have, how that's going, because I get that they're in the safe environment, everyone feels normal, and there's not that embarrassment, and I appreciate that and understand that. But then how does that work when they get thrown into a 9th grade classroom with kids who may not be as understanding?
Sure.
So if you could speak to that first, and then I have a few
I mean,
questions.
most definitely. I mean, our teachers and our principal and our staff actually try to make it as normal as possible, right? So it's not like they're being singled out. At this moment in time, they have an environment where they can learn to read together. Okay, so they still operate as normal. They still have their lunch. They still have all the other subjects. They still go out. They still participate. So it's not like they are ostracized or put in a different classroom and then they're made to try to transition back into society itself. That's not even the case. We try to make it as normal as possible so that the program itself is teaching them how to read. That's getting them the tools and the mindset, because a lot of them, what they see is jumbled words, right? And so we're just trying to get them to, okay, hey, this is what you do when you look at a book, and get them to the process where they get at grade level, where they become less of, where they don't feel ostracized, where they don't feel like, hey, I don't want to be that person where I don't know how to read. So in that environment, they just learn how to read. So it's not anything different. We still operate like a normal school. So by the time, like, we had students who actually leave us from 8th grade to go to high school, and they integrate back into normal, because kids, they can, anywhere you send them, they're just gonna get together anyway. So, but at the end of the day, it's not anything different. It's just our program. We try to specialize that and help them and give them the tools to cope with that, so that they can get back into, you know, the high school, whatever the case is. And just like one of our parents here, she's leaving us because I think her child now has caught up, and she feels it's time for the child to move onto, you know, a different set of environment. So.
Yes, please, I'd appreciate your perspective.
If I may, we're still friends.
Sorry. Yeah.
Stephanie Sublette, Mason's mom. We're still friends with kids who have transitioned out, or like us. Mason's going to the 9th grade. But his friend Allison left last year, and she just picked up. I mean, these are still kids, like, you know, we still see, you know, kids that are in regular classes, you know, at church and at football and, you know, at plays and all the other things. So it's the kids that I'm aware of, they, you know, as they get back into the regular classroom, they seem to be acclimating. I don't know of anyone that struggled. I haven't heard of any things, because, you know, we talk. I don't know of anyone that struggled. As Mason transitions, like, I'm just worried about him going to a new school, you know, so, but that's more of what I'm worried about more than anything, his going to a new place. But as far as he's ready, I'm not ready. But that, yeah, I haven't heard of trouble as far as I can tell, because like I said, I mean, the kids are, like, their confidence is there, and they are around other kids. So I don't feel like it's a pull-out situation. It's almost like just transferring schools, or that's how I'm thinking of it, like they're just transferring schools. I do expect him maybe to have some accommodations with time or something like that, but or maybe I'm just hopeful, but if that helps at all. I haven't heard of issues. So.
All right, thank you. And I will reiterate that there are laws in Arkansas that
Yes.
our public schools all have to provide services for dyslexia.
Correct.
Obviously, they have to provide a lot of services, and they do the best that they can with the resources they have.
And
so
I was gonna say
they
also-
still are eligible for those services when they return to the regular public school.
Yeah, we also actually created an exit plan for our kids as well. So we get all their IEPs, all their accommodations together, and then we provide to the next school that they're going to. So that way they know everything that the school is receiving to ensure that the education is continuing on to the next level.
Okay.
And that's what we provide as well, so. Right.
Okay, thank you. And then I also had a question, just former math educator. I'm wondering if you focus on dyscalculia,
Yes,
since it's so common to be.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have students who have dyscalculia and as well as dysgraphia as well. And that's where we have the, what is it, I think it was Writing for Tears? Writing without tears. Yeah. So we have those programs. So because a lot of them who have dyslexia do have other symptoms as well. Dyscalculia, dysgraphia. I know there's 6 dys out there, but those are the 3 major ones that we try to help out with our students at the school.
Okay, so your teachers are receiving training there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Because that's
Yeah.
often something that doesn't get as much attention.
Yeah, they went through
so-
training this year with the tears. What is it again? Handwriting without tears. There you go. It's one of the specialized programs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then another question I had, and this might be for some of the DESE folks or ADE folks, because we had someone before who was they were looking to be an ALE, and it was the time of year that the deadline, it was too late for them to do it, they couldn't do it. Do you know what the deadline is for applying for the ALE and the time for that in comparison to when they're wanting to start their charter under an ALE?
I don't know that deadline. However, we were communicating with our accountability folks here at DESE, and Ms. Hope sent us a rule, which is super helpful. So in our rules, this is the DESE rules governing the public school accountability, or the public school rating system on annual school performance reports and the school recognition program. And within those rules, Rule 3.05 actually has designated certain exemptions from the school accountability system. And the only way you can be exempt from having an actual letter grade for your school is if you are an open enrollment public charter school whose mission and enrollment are primarily focused on students who have either already dropped out of high school or who are identified as at risk of dropping out of school. So I think that is actually the route they will have to take if they do not want an actual letter grade on this specific school. I would have loved to have researched before this today, but the waivers were not very specific and were a bit confusing to me, so I didn't quite understand what they were asking for. So now that we've been able to look into this, it appears that that is the route they would have to take. They can get an alternate or an additional campus today in their charter. They can move forward with the intention that it primarily be focused on students with dyslexia. However, they would also just have to ensure that the mission of this new campus is to identify and focus on students who are at risk of dropping out of school. And I'm sure that having dyslexia and that not being treated would be something that would put you at risk of potentially dropping out of school in the future. So I do think that it's possible they could get this exemption from our accountability section of DESE, but that is something they will need to talk to our accountability section of DESE about. And that is something they can do after they get this additional campus and intend to start this new dyslexia-focused school within Friendship.
Okay. Can I ask her a follow-up to that? Just so if we approve today, they are approved under sort of normal rules, and so back to sort of this confidence issue, if for some reason the ALE process doesn't work out, then the school is accountable in the same way that any other school.
Right,
Okay.
right. That is
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
The accountability is not something that can be waived.
Okay.
So they will just have to, of course, leave here today knowing that as of today, if they get this additional campus, they will be still held accountable and have a letter grade unless they are able to get this exemption from the accountability section.
Do you know that timeline on getting that? I was just curious.
I do not.
Sorry, I know these things just popped up in the middle.
No,
so
yeah,
I
that's
know
totally
that's
fine.
on-
If you have other questions, I can kind of see if I
Yeah,
can
so do
find
you
that.
mind if you would kind of
Yeah, see
reach
if I
back
can.
out to them and then we'll circle back around?
Okay,
to
that
you.
sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Give you a
Yeah.
chance to kind of regroup.
Thank you, because
Do
I was
you have
just,
more questions? for
well, no,
me?
because that's why I was just curious if they're wanting this for next school year, like if that is possible for
Right.
next school year or not, just because that would be sort of confusing if it wasn't.
Right.
So that's the part I was
Okay.
wondering.
Yes, I will look into that real quick.
Okay, I think that's all my questions right now. Thank you again.
Thanks. Okay. Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, thank you. And I have a comment, and then I have just a few questions. And like the panel, I'm also excited about the concept of what you all are doing. And I think we all know that children with dyslexia need special help. But my first comment would be for Kate, and I think the second student was Rowan, just to tell you all how proud I am that you all stood up and spoke for yourselves and for your school and for your classmates, and how great a job you did. I've known adults that could not get up and speak as eloquently as you all did and as powerfully. And I just want to say congratulations, parents, your kids are great. And it was the high point of my day so far, probably will be the high point of my week. So thank you. Now for my questions, Dr. Tran, I saw in your information that you included a budget, but that looked like the budget for the whole organization. And I was wondering if you have a separate budget for this new school that you're asking for, or was that just included as part of the overall budget?
That was included as overall budget, sir, because at the end of the day, we are one LEA, so everything falls under that one LEA. So the student count, we increased the student count by 135. That will be a district-wide student count increase. So the monies that we're receiving will be just one. But at the end of the day, we would have enough to, I mean, at this moment in time, we would have enough to ensure that it meets based upon the budget that I sent you all.
I assume that, but I'm kind of a finance guy, so I always like to see new things get their own budget.
Yes, sir.
Just so you can make sure that the financial situation doesn't hurt the overall school,
Most
which I'm
definitely.
sure it won't. But maybe just think through that.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask on the long-term plan. So I know we've talked about how many children in Arkansas need this service. And I know it sounds like you're starting out with probably 30 to 45 kids potentially in this new program. Is there a long-term plan to grow this program
Yes, sir.
over time? And maybe talk to us about that, and how many students do you think you possibly could have in 5 or 10 years?
Most definitely. Yeah. So this is just the beginning of our program. We wanted to really grow and expand the program. We wanted to go and have a different campus or even build schools within schools. That's another choice as well. But eventually, within the 5 to 10 year period, we're hoping to serve at least, I think when we were doing the actual count, about 1,500 to 2,000 students. So we wanted to have at least about 5 campuses overall eventually. But I mean, if we could get more, most definitely, but we wanted to expand and grow. But Mr. Johowski can talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Our long-term plan related to this is to really ensure that all the kids that are almost 1,500 kids that are in the Total Friendship Network have access to these specialized services. There is an opportunity here by bringing in this private school. It means that all of our network will benefit from that. That's our first and primary focus, is to ensure that as many kids have access to the specialized services. So you will see, as part of our strategic growth plan, is to ensure, one, not just the solvency of that school by converting it to a charter, and the resources that will come as a result of being part of something larger, but it's also our plan to ensure that all of our kids across our network, Friendship Network, have access to these specialized services. And just because you don't go to this particular physical school building, all of our kids in our network will benefit. You heard us talk about the executive functioning program, which is really around helping kids make the right decisions that can oftentimes be attributed to those that have dyslexia or have challenges with reading. That is something that we've incorporated into all of our schools. All of our teachers last year got specialized training in how to identify kids with dyslexia. And we continue that. Our SPED unit has gotten stronger as a result of understanding that connectivity. The connection that we have with the clinicians, the therapists, also support the larger network. So when I think about our growth, it really is about focusing on ensuring that not just the 135 kids that will be expanding receive services, but over 1,500 kids through our network will benefit in some way directly from this action today. But it's also then too about how do we ensure that other geographical pockets within the state have access as well. And we're looking at that. Last year we did a strategic plan that allowed us to dream about what expansion would look like. And you heard Dr. Tran talk about the potential for it having a reach in at least five of our existing schools. That's a potential. There's nothing like this in the Pine Bluff region. There's nothing like what we're talking about in the Delta region of the country. Us having this school will allow us to look ahead at what the needs are for the Central Arkansas and the Delta. And that's kind of where we want to kind of stay focused. We know we can't solve this issue for the entire state, but what we can do is kind of centralize and focus this effort and target it geographically. That's our goal. We haven't quite clarified what expansion will look like. We're not trying to, convert friendship schools to all dyslexia schools. That's not what we're talking about here. So we're talking about really expanding. By converting this school, it'll allow us to incorporate what makes this school very special for its 135 kids that we're proposing, but for all the kids in the Friendship Network, which includes also the third-party school system that we manage at Marvelly Lane. They also benefit from it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that answer. I'm actually happy to hear that you have big plans on this. I think this is something that could be transformational, and every part of the state would need this over time. My final question would be just on what we're talking about right now. You're wanting to bring in the students from the private school to convert that to a charter campus. Tell us again how many students initially would come over with that, and then describe the charter campus. Is that a separate building? Is it going to be, classrooms inside an existing building? And if it is a separate building, is this a building you own or rent? And talk to us about the finances that inure to you from that building.
So we actually have a building at this moment in time. It's the dyslexia school, the Friendship Dyslexia School in Momel. It's a very small school, and maximum occupancy is about 100, 135 students. We have classrooms in there, so we've converted the school. It used to be a church, then it became a gym, and now it's a school. So we went in, we made some changes to make the school safer. We've got a door at the front that stops parents and stops active shooter these days, so that safe, secure for our students. And then we have actual normal classrooms inside the building itself. The school is actually on a larger plot of land that we can expand later on if we need to build more. But it is, there's a mortgage on it, okay? So we're paying rent to utilize that building.
And so there's no additional cost
No, sir.
on the building? Okay.
No, sir. No additional cost.
All right, thank you. That's all, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Questions I have.
thanks. So I do have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So going back to the enrollment cap, you're trying to get to the 135, and
Yes, ma'am.
I initially wrote down, is there like 25?
Yes, ma'am. There's
right
25
now?
students at this moment in time. Yes.
And then your next step is to get to
50 to double that, and then double that.
Okay,
Yes.
so, you feel as if that there is the need for that capacity growth in the area that you're in right now, that you gotten like feedback from folks saying that, yes, I'm gonna send my kids there? I mean, how are you getting to the 135 number?
So we have, like, for example, at our schools right now, at our charter schools, we actually have parents who finally knows that the students, that their child have dyslexia, and they've been sending their kids over. And so with that being said, there will be, now it's an educational program that is free, so we can go ahead and recruit and put it out there. Currently at our school right now, we have about 30 to 40 students that actually come to the school to receive dyslexia services. So on top of that, if you add those students with the 25 that we actually have now, that's already about 65 students already. And so to get to that target, again, remember first year is 50, then the second year to double that. So I don't think we have any issues in getting to that target at all.
So you have 25 that are enrolled there now?
Yes, ma'am.
And there's additional 30 kids coming from?
From our charter schools
Okay.
to get services, because we have a program where they come for 2 days to get that intervention services with for dyslexia.
Okay, and is that charter school in Maumelle also?
No, so that's our network of schools.
Okay.
So in Little Rock and North Little Rock.
Okay,
The problem is the families within the Friendship Network can't afford the cost of the private school tuition.
okay.
But there is a need already within our system, just within our school, Garland campus located in Little Rock, and then our school that we took over from Lighthouse in North Little Rock. So there is an immediate need where we have 25 to 30 kids whose families can't afford to send their kids to the school, but who want to go to the school.
Okay.
So this helps us solve that problem in the immediate. And what we know statistically about the kids that are just in the Friendship Network and in and around the Maumelle and Little Rock and North Little Rock, there's a demand for the need for this school. It's just that families that can't afford to pay for this school and the services.
Okay, so I guess that kind of helps with my next question, and listening to you explain your growth plan going forward of almost having campuses within campuses. So I guess my question is, as you transition to a charter, why would you not do that now?
Again, cost, and it's about the specialty that's associated with it. We have this specialized school. When it becomes a charter school, folded directly into charter school, it will have that reach across all of our schools. We do provide services currently for all of our kids that have dyslexia. We meet all of their specialty needs. We're already doing that. What we're talking about is a school model and a school design, and folding that in it. That is what makes the lab school unique. We have our traditional charter school model that kids experience every day. We're talking about a school within a school that will capture some of the special features. It wouldn't be a pullout. It would be something that that's fully integrated of sorts, but addresses the specialized needs of those kids. One of which example is our executive functioning program, which, if you can think about it, is an exciting and expanded physical education piece that speaks to helping kids with critical decision-making skills, but also gets them up and moving and thinking critically, and addresses those needs that many of the kids that have special needs, their physical component to learning is integrated. So that's a special feature that we would add to all of our schools. But right now, we're not able to do it as a school within a school until we are totally folded this school in, is what I guess is going to be our approach.
Totally folding this school into,
As we convert it to a charter school,
okay,
into the Friendship Net, we add this campus into the Friendship.
okay. And I hate to keep asking the same question over again, so, but I guess my question is if you are transitioning to a charter school, and it sounds as if that you guys have created an effective model to deliver instruction that will support students that have dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are converting to a charter, could your charter not then incorporate in those services without being a specific school for students that have dyslexia? Does it have to be that this school has to be a complete dyslexia school, or could it be this is now in Maumelle area, it's a Friendship charter campus, and we are bringing over these strong supports for students to make sure that they also have these resources? That's just the question that I have.
Well, what makes the school special is that it is a specialized school to serve these kids. So it's, we're right now integrating services into our traditional school setting. This school being a separate school identified to serve this unique needs of these kids is what makes it special. Being in and around kids that are similar, I won't call it challenges, but superpowers. Oftentimes, you know, the stigma that often goes with being having these challenges is kind of addressed. One of the things I think, Dr. Moore, you talked about confidence. A lot of what kids learn in this school go beyond just that classroom. It really is about building their confidence in how they transition and move through the rest of the world. You heard the parent talk about how what they learn in the school impacts what takes place in the home. That is also what happens throughout their life. So having a specialized school is where we think, and what we know from experience is the best chance for kids that have an opportunity to go to the specialized school where they can thrive and grow at in a much more comfortable environment. So we do need to have this specialized school that focuses on dyslexia, but will also ensure that it is what we learn and the services we provide are available to all of our students, which is what we do now.
Okay. So is it your intention that this school will always be just a school for students that have dyslexia? It will never transition to what you described before as a school within a school?
Yes, so it will always be a school, this campus will be a school for dyslexia students only. But at the same time, I just want to drive home that it's the program, it's a full-fledged program, and it's dedicated to this building. And so that's why we needed to have a standalone school to provide all the services that's being served right now. Because the school within the school model is great, you pull it out, but they're not getting the full services that you want each one of these kids to have. And that's why we needed to have it as a standalone school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Move on to the next question. So then, I have another question in regards to the waivers.
Yes, ma'am.
So what I hear that we're moving, if we move forward, then this campus will be able to be folded under your current charter.
Yes, ma'am.
And so all the waivers that you have for your charter will apply to this school.
Yes, ma'am.
So I then have questions about that because unfortunately, I'm sorry I don't have all your waivers outlined in front of me, but I would just want to be able to know which waivers that you have so that I will be comfortable that if we're serving a population of students
Sure.
that are higher need, that there wouldn't be any of those waivers that I would not normally say, oh, I'm okay with this for this population of
Yeah,
students.
all the waivers that we actually receive are the traditional waivers that charter schools receive. So it's not anything different. I don't think the only specialized waiver that we wanted to ask for was that accountability. That was pretty much, but everything that our charter school waivers have, it's pretty much the same as what other charter schools have as well. Even our Marble Lane School District school, most of their waivers are pretty much the same as the charter waivers, so it's not anything different. But again, like I said, the one that we really wanted the most was that accountability waiver because that's going to help us in what we need to do with our educational program.
Dr. Robert McMurray, I did look up their waivers, and they do have teacher licensure, which that was one of my questions in your presentation. Do you mind me expanding
No,
on the
go ahead.
question? Okay.
No, go ahead.
I thought that might be sort of what you were asking about too.
Yeah.
On your presentation, the PowerPoint, the education model speaks to highly skilled educators and trained certified dyslexia interventionist, et cetera. So I was curious, since now you'll have the waiver for licensure.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak to what your requirements are for teachers at this school?
Every single one of our teachers will have to go through that Wilson program because that Wilson curriculum and program is so critical to the success of our students. So there's different levels, and every single one of our teachers who will be teaching at that school will have to be certified in that Wilson. And Wilson has its own certification program, which is rigorous anyway. But on top of that, our teachers have gone through the RISE training, which is required by the state as well.
So how about other content areas? Because, your math, your science.
Yes, so again, they'll get trained. We'll use we're gonna look at the state and ask for, follow what the state standards are. And whatever the state required us to do in those subjects, we'll go ahead and do. But the thing that mattered the most, because again, this is a dyslexia school, is that reading program, and to ensure that all of our teachers are certified in that program.
And I agree that it is a focus of the school, but if they return to high school and they're not at grade level in math,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
going to be a whole nother issue.
Most definitely. And again, our teachers, they are I'm not saying they're certified, but they know how to teach math. But with your certification program, again, we can get that going on as well. I know our schools, we're trying to change that model in ensuring that all our teachers are certified. So again, that's going to happen within this school as well.
So how about special education teachers, since you mentioned that so many of the students had maybe specific learning disabilities other than dyslexia?
Yeah, so we have the therapists coming. A lot of our students who have IEPs, they have IEPs based on speech, OT, PT, and again, those are licensed therapists that come in and provide those services to the students.
How about just special education teachers, though?
If we need to have it, most definitely we're going to have to ensure that those teachers are certified in special education to provide those services based upon their IEPs. We just need to look at the IEPs to make sure what is it they are required to have, and we'll go ahead and provide those services to ensure that they meet the state law.
Thank you for.
Can I ask a question?
Um,
Or you go ahead.
No, yes, go ahead, Mr.
I just had a question, follow-up question with what Dr. Morris said regarding licensure and certifications and the special ed piece. So who would be the lead for the IEPs for
Sure.
any of those meetings and
So
development of them?
we actually have Ms. Jerica, and we also have Ms. Webu, who are in charge of our SPED department. They will go ahead and do all that as well. Ms. Jerica has been working with the lab school for a very long time, and she's helping out with that. We also have our own evaluator that we have retained, and they can go ahead and start the process. Again, just depending on what the IEP states. If the IEP states that they're required to have so many minutes with the special education teacher, most definitely that's what we're going to do. But we do have a special education department that can go ahead and fulfill that.
Okay, because you mentioned earlier about it does
Yes, ma'am.
follow the student once they go back to their home school.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there other supports or anything that would would lead up to that before they go back to their home school?
I mean, again, the program in general does that. It provides all that necessary tools and skill set to support the child so that when they do leave us, they'll be ready to go ahead and transition back to whatever school they go to. And on top of that, we provide a kind of like a transition plan. Like our principals sit down with each parent who's leaving us, who's transitioning to another school, and they provide a plan on, okay, this is where they're at, or their IPs, or 504, whatever the case is, so that they can go ahead and take that to the next school to ensure that it's a continuous process and not just, okay, it stops there.
That's helpful, thank you.
Okay. So prior, when Ms. Stewart asked a question about school counseling, you said that you guys have that system in place. Can you walk us through that process of what that looks like for a student that is attending your school, their school counseling and guidance process, career exploration, those pieces that students have access to while they're on your campus?
So at this moment in time, the counselor that we don't have a physical counselor, but our principals, Ms. Lauren Chapman, she also accesses the counselor because she's been there and she goes and helps with the kids. She does a lot with the kids. I mean, do you want to come and talk a little bit about the counseling services that you provide?
Hi, my name is Lauren Chapman. I'm the principal of Friendship Aspire Lab School. Given the fact that we have 25 students, we get to know their families and their students very well, and so as needs come in that require, emotional support, we can provide that just because of our family nature of our school, but we also are in contact, or I am in contact with the social worker or the counselor that is part of the Friendship Network. So if there are things or needs that happen beyond what I'm able to provide at the school level, we can provide those wraparound services or get them connected to the resources that they need. So we do have a comprehensive wraparound service. We just kind of borrow as we need from the FAA network.
Okay. So outside of personal counseling and if your students, their career counseling needs, how are those handled? And then as you were thinking about that, as you guys are growing from 25 to 50 to 135, what is that going to look like for students that are going to be on your campus?
So in terms of looking at career support, we do take them on a lot of field trips and things and get them the opportunity to be exposed to different kinds of careers. We work with the Maumelle Chamber of Commerce and different organizations to give them some of that background. And the second part of your question was our expansion and what that looks like. Then as we develop and have the opportunity to add more to our staff, then that's, we'll hire more specialized people to help with that. But only going up through 8th grade, we can handle a lot of our exposure through field trips and having in guest speakers and programs, on our campus to help prepare them for going into that high school track of their choice.
Okay. So the students that you have in 8th grade, when they leave your campus, are they leaving with a student success plan, and what does that process look like for students?
Well, what we do currently is we work with the school that they're transitioning to, and we provide documentation of any, IEP or 504 plan that they might need to go in, and then if they're going into a lot of our children go back into a private school setting, but if they go into the public school, then we work on helping create those documents with that team.
So you're letting their IEP stand as their career plan when they transition?
When they transition to, currently as they transition to a 9th grade.
Okay. Yes. And I guess back to the other questions, and so as we're working individually with our students, and I'm trying to, think through, because right now at 25, it is probably a lot easier to work with those students a lot more one-on-one.
Sure.
But as you have your plan for growth, I guess that's what my questions are as well, is what is that going to look like as we're growing? How will that support be in place for students so that they do have that opportunity to have that piece? Because as they're transitioning, they'll be going with their peers that had that block of time in their 8th grade to really do some career exploration. So what is that going to look like for those students as we build more students into your system?
So as we transition, then we would add those same courses, and then we'd have a counselor.
Yeah, we add more staff to that.
Okay.
Most definitely. So
That would help.
At the end of the day, as you grow, you're gonna have to need to add more stuff to your school. So that's something that we're gonna look at as we get bigger. So, yes.
I think Ms. Haywood was trying to come up and do follow-up to some of the questions we had before. Do we have responses to that now, or do we need to give more time for that? Or is Dr. Smith coming? Whoever.
We'll pick and choose.
Okay.
Daryl Smith, Assistant Commissioner, Office of School Choice. So I want to kind of clarify the rule, the 3.05 that Ms. Haywood was mentioning earlier. So basically, an ALE, if you're just since that was kind of the first rabbit we chased. So ALEs are not exempt from school ratings, regardless. So an ALE is never exempt from school ratings. The only way you can be exempt from a school rating, which I think was is that if in your mission you state that you're serving either at-risk students for dropout or they have dropped out. So the enrollment criteria for you as a school is that you're serving students that are at risk of dropping out. So that is the only criteria that you can have to be exempt from a school rating. The school does have the option to basically, if it is an ALE or something, to assign students to some of their other campuses within the district, and at that point, they would be counted in the accountability scores of the other schools. So at this time, there is no exemption available to them, given their current mission and the fact that an ALE is irrelevant at this point, whether or not they do that or not, to be exempt from their school rating.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Are there any other questions about that?
And we'll also, just since Ms. Haywood's over there, you can certainly ask her the legal side of this question, but I know some of the other things like this, as far as this being a specialized school, certainly they have the right to work through it can be a niche type school. However, they cannot limit enrollment to only dyslexia students as an open enrollment charter. They have to open it up, obviously, to the state, to anyone. They can serve primarily dyslexic students, and they can certainly make that part of their mission and part of their marketing campaign as far as the students that they're trying to attract. However, wouldn't be allowed necessarily to restrict enrollment, strictly on the basis of whether a child has dyslexia or not.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay.
I was going to say, to that point, that's why we named it the Friendship Lab School for Dyslexia, because as a charter school, it has to be on open enrollment. So we're fully aware of that already, but the name itself, that's why it's going to help us to, I'm not saying attract, but to let parents know that this isn't any traditional public charter school, but this is a public charter school for students with dyslexia.
I was just going to ensure that we knew that there are actually 2 amendment requests today, even though there was only 1 in the application, because there is the amendment request to, of course, create a new campus. However, he did state in his presentation he's also wanting to increase his enrollment cap. So that would be a second amendment request that would also need to be voted on separately. It just wasn't clear in the actual paperwork. I'm not sure what his current enrollment cap is. I looked on the My School Info website. He's got anywhere from, they have some schools with 200 to 300 kids and some with, maybe 50. So I'm not sure if maybe he can tell us what his current overarching LEA enrollment cap is, and then just ensure that we vote on approving to increase that cap by a total of 135. So that's all I had at this time.
Okay. Did you want to have a chance to clarify your enrollment cap?
Sure. The enrollment that we have is approximately about 2,000. That was our cap, about 2,500 students at this moment in time. So that was just, and again, we were adding additional 135 was because of the actual folding of the students at the lab school.
Okay.
Could you clarify on that? You only have your district LEA cap then? You do not have any school campus LEA caps?
When we consolidated, it became the district, but at our campus, for example, our Southeast campus, we requested, I think it was 780. Our Garden Little Rock was 480. Our middle school was 160. Our North Little Rock campus was 120. Our Pine Bluff campus was, I think, 485.20. Our downtown campus was, I think, 280. So again, that was together, and when we consolidated that all together, they just put it as one. And again, I could be mistaken, but that's what happened when we consolidated.
I'm insanely impressed that you could throw out those.
I'm sorry. Again, those numbers, it's kind of like the the average. I'm not saying it's exactly enough, but that's the amount. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So do we have any more questions from panel members? Okay, is there any more discussion that we need to have?
I guess my question would be, if we make a motion, the motion will be that they can have this additional campus and increase enrollment by, their enrollment cap by 135 students. And we're just sort of operating under this, they'll pursue the ALE through DESE. But what I heard earlier was perhaps, and it might give us a little more confidence, March update from Friendship and or DESE about the status of that ALE process to know. if
They're
we're
not gonna do ALE now, though.
Okay, so we're not
Yes.
doing that.
No.
No, they're
Okay.
going to
Try to get
that exemption
Yeah.
at 3.05,
Okay,
but it's not an ALE.
okay. And who is that process with?
I think it's public school accountability. And so, and that's what I wrote in my notes, is
Okay.
that it would, whatever language we put forward, is that we have something that requests a return, so we can get an update before there's moving forward, so that we can be comfortable and confident about what's taking place. But that's what I've written down in my notes. But they have changed now from the ALE because, as Dr. Smith explained, that
That's
wouldn't give them the
it wouldn't be what they
flexibility,
want.
so they would need to go after the exemption, which is what Ms. Haywood
Okay.
conversed with Ms. Worsham, and she gave that confirmation. She's Assistant Commissioner for Public School
So is
Accountability.
that a easier, faster process then than the ALE I mean, what does that process look like to apply for this 305?
So that process, I think, is sort of an ongoing every single year process. So my understanding is that every so often, of course, the accountability section looks at the different scores of all the multiple schools, and they get an actual letter grade score. And so I think essentially that is something that when this campus turns in their assessment scores to DESE, they would have to request that essentially every year, saying, hey, we're just kind of requesting an exemption because we believe we meet this exemption rule for targeting children who are at risk of dropping out. And so the accountability section may or may not agree with them and may give them that exemption.
And you're saying that's something that wouldn't happen on the front end, that happens on the back end?
Yes, so they will have to turn in their assessment scores regardless. It's just whether or not that would be counted towards an actual grade letter.
So really what we would, are being asked to do today then is to approve the campus and the enrollment cap addition of 135. And they're accountable for everything that is traditionally normal unless one of these things happens.
Correct.
So I guess my question to Friendship is, do you want to move forward with this in that manner, knowing that you may be accountable for school letter grades and everything else unless this 305 process is successful at some point down the road?
Right.
I mean, we had the discussions with the Department of Education before we did all this. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we were looking at, and that's what we were trying to get through. I mean, if we need to go ahead and talk to Hope and the Department of Education to get this waived every year, that's what we're gonna have to do, because at the end of the day, I feel that getting this to become a public charter school will actually open it up for more families. And at the end of the day, my goal is to serve more families, to serve more students, to ensure that they get the necessary skill set and tools to make it. I mean, it's disheartening to hear that we're gonna have to do it every year. But I guess this is something that we're gonna have to work through.
Well, and it's not guaranteed, so
I know,
to that point.
exactly. So,
Like,
I
knowing
mean,
that going in, that you're not guaranteed that will happen.
that's something that we might have to get updated with you all, maybe. But I mean, if
Let me see if I can help out just a little bit here. So, Daryl Smith, again, Office of School Choice. So, 305 is not a waivable rule. Okay, there are exceptions to the rule, and that are very clearly spelled out in rules. The only one that necessarily applies right now to this particular school is the one that talks about the mission. If the mission is to enroll at-risk students, or students who are at risk of dropping out or have already dropped out and are now re-entering the public education system, then they can be exempt from a school rating. Other than that, there is no other option. There is no, that is not waivable. There are no, so it's a missional determination. So your mission has to be that you will enroll, that your only mission, that your only goal in your school is to enroll students that are at risk of dropping out or have dropped out. So in this case, coming back a year, none of that's relevant because it's not, again, this is not waivable as a, in that rule. So if the school's right now intent is to try to waive the school rating, then they might consider, pulling back a little bit, withdrawing their current application, maybe going back to the drawing board a little bit, and coming back before this panel in a month or so with maybe a little different strategy and a little different plan that would still help them accomplish the very worthy goal that they have to serve students that are at need and have need. I think we all would agree that's a very worthy cause and it's a very needed service. And so, but I think, and there may be some ways that we can help them around that, not necessarily around the school rating per se, but we can maybe help them with a better, maybe a more cohesive plan to accomplish what it is that they need to accomplish in order to serve those students.
I appreciate you giving us that additional guidance and information, and I will have to say that we're on the same wavelength, because that would be my recommendation, but of course, as the applicant, you can proceed however you wish, but my recommendation would be that you have an opportunity to visit more with the public school accountability folks and figure out the best route and the best wording for your amendment so that we can make sure that you're fully aware of all your options and what needs to take place. And then I think, would be more comfortable with that, knowing what direction you're going in and what your outcomes are going to be. Because if you do get into this situation where it's not exempt, and then you're back in front of us because your letter grades are poor, then we'll be having that conversation. Just rather, if that's going to be the case, we all know it on the front end. That is just my thoughts and recommendation. But of course, as the applicant, you're free to do whatever you would like, and then the panel can always weigh in on their thoughts as well.
No, I agree with you. Again, like I said, the discussions being with the department about this academic waiver, because that was pretty much how we started that conversation. Because at the end of the day, we know that it's not going to be where we want to be. And so the conversation started with Desi as, okay, hey, this is what we wanted to do, but in order to do this, we needed this academic accountability waiver. And so, again, starting with Desi, then starting with the charter, authorizing the charter division, that's what we wanted. So, again, I'm not too sure where the lines was crossed, but that was how the conversation began. But to your point, I agree with you. I guess as of today, we might just rescind the application for now while we go ahead and look at this further and then come back if things do change. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Is there any other business we need to be addressing today? Okay. If there's no other business in front of the charter, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Well, you haven't had anything yet. Yeah. Well, I will say that Dr. Bacon moved and Ms. Stewart second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Ayes have it. Thank you.